Leadership is an ecosystem. From my point of view, if you want to understand leadership, you don't talk about the leader. You don't talk about, I don't know, if you Google leadership, you have 4.9 million replies. So have a good trip to get through all of that and to understand that. So leadership is more. Leadership is a complete system. Leadership is complicated. An ecosystem is consisting of elements, of flora, fauna. It's consisting of weather. Weather is hitting the leadership ecosystem, like, for example, a bank which is bankrupt. Yeah, this can be insulting a leadership ecosystem. And so if you take the example of an ecosystem, then you see also that there's not only one, there are many ecosystems, and also so there are many leadership ecosystems. I decided to describe leadership ecosystems not from real life. Real life ecosystems are quite hard to understand. If you want to get into that, you have to be part of it. How do you want to be part of many ecosystems if you're working for one, for example? So if you want to understand the leader and the leadership, you can open the newspaper, but you will not understand it completely. So that's why it's maybe hopefully a bit more sexy. I took Hollywood blockbusters to describe leadership a bit more practically. Leadership in Star Wars, well, first of all, I don't know how many of people who see this talk know those films, but actually I can tell you that pretty much have seen them. And if you see those movies, you see different ecosystems competing with each other. You see the Dark Empire in Star Wars, which is an ecosystem, by the way, competing with a rebellion. You see the people who are carrying the ring to some mountain in Lord of the Rings, competing with Sauron, the bad guy. Every time there's a good and a bad. And actually in Avatar you see two ecosystems, and one is really an ecosystem. In Avatar you see a tribe which is called Na'vi, and they have Chief Atokan, so it's the boss of them, and they have also something like a religion, and it's really biologically connected. So it's a complete ecosystem itself inside, somehow describing a leadership ecosystem. Of course, it's about the leader. It's not only about the ecosystem. To understand leadership, makes sense to understand maybe five different kinds of leaders. So there's a transactional, this guy is only knowing this direction, so I say you do. There's a consulting leader, he's still something like that, but he also says, well, I'm interested in what you are saying to his employees, for example. In the middle of those five, there's the change leader. The change leader is somehow influencing, he also wants to raise up other leaders. The fourth one is the consultant leader. He's more like discussing and walking around, getting to the offices, listening, and trying to move the people. And the fifth one is the servant, the Gandhi among the leaders. And if you see that in our films, which I have here, so you see the Dark Emperor, he's a typical transactional guy. He says, you do. He has his agenda, and who is not interested in being part of this ecosystem, goodbye. Maybe not alive. But that's a movie. The next one is Darth Vader. He's not a typical transactional guy for me. He's a bit manager and transactional, somehow in the middle. And the third one, whom you see here, is the same. He's Mace Windu, so who knows him? Mace Windu is a transactional manager leader somehow, sometimes in this and sometimes in that direction. And that already tells us leadership is not actually good or bad. Transactional is not necessarily a bad guy. So if you're a transactional leader and leading a company through a crisis, you don't have to wear a black thing and you have to kill people. So it's not the thing what you have to do. The third one is Han Solo here, and Han Solo is actually not a leader. He doesn't want to be a leader. He's only leading a big dog, and that's it. And the fourth one, Princess Amidala, she's a typical consultant from my point of view, but later in the movies she's also fighting. So she's consultant. She's also a leader who's taking responsibility in the first row. And the last one, you see Yoda. Yoda is for me a typical servant. Actually, in all those films, he's fighting 2 times, but he's inspiring his people, and fighting in real life means in a company is maybe not what we see in the movie, of course. But if you now take the other movies, if you take Hobbit, which is also connected to Lord of the Rings, Thorin, the dwarf, the head of the dwarves, he is typical change leader, and suddenly he's turning into the dark side, and he's almost a transactional leader in the third movie or book. You can also read it. You don't have to only watch the movie. And in Avatar, you see Jake Sully, who is a human guy. He's entering the Avatar biological system, and he's not a leader, and he's even not a member of the leadership ecosystem. And finally, he's leading the ecosystem only because he's going through a process, and he's coming from another ecosystem, joining this ecosystem. And so it's interesting to see, and that's maybe part of summary of the theory. It's interesting to see that leadership is almost every time. It's not sleeping. It's moving, moving, moving. Leadership is not good or bad, so you can be a transactional leader, and you don't have to be thinking if your mother is still talking to you. So it's possible to be a transactional leader, because maybe the leadership ecosystem demands that for you. Maybe you have to guide, and maybe you have to say, now go, and no, not only consult and say, well, I think you should go, otherwise the company is drowning. I think it should be understandable that leadership is not good or bad. It depends on the situation. There's another TED talk of Professor David Logan, who is also addressing the complexity. Inside a leadership ecosystem, you see different levels of motivation of people and of attitude of people. Let's say good or bad. Yeah? So the bad thing is life sucks and my life sucks. So watch that speak, that's very interesting. And you have all those people until I'm great, we are great, and life is great. So, and if you are taking this and you are a leader and your attitude is we are great, you should only think maybe one point, and this is you can only jump one step. Yeah? So if you are we are great leader, you can inspire those people who are I am great or life is great. But it's hard to get to those people who say life sucks. So you have to create your network in such a leadership ecosystem. So again, it's not only like stable and standing, it's completely moving. So inside this moving train of a leadership ecosystem, you have to get to the people by building bridges. And that's what I also saw in reality, not only in movies or in another speech. So now I get to reality, so leaving theory now. I was 19, after school, just finishing, and we were with a few people, a few friends, on the way to the Netherlands, celebrating Abitur. So school is finishing, but what comes? Nobody knows. We were standing on the motorway, nothing was moving, so we had enough time, and we were talking, what do we want to achieve? So the first one said, I want to have money, lots of money. So I think he did well, so somehow it guided him to having lots of money. The second one said, I want to help people. I want to maybe be a doctor, maybe also earning a lot of money with that, but I want to help. He is a doctor now, quite a successful guy. The third one said, I don't know. Come on, I'm 19, I don't know. Why should I know? Oh, I have to say, not much happened to him until today, so somehow that was maybe his vision. He still doesn't know. So I don't say names, so that I can say whatever I want. The fourth one, the fourth one was me, and so please, now if you think he is standing the Dark Emperor, please, then you didn't listen what I said. I said I want to have power. I said I want to have connection to people. I want to talk to people. I want to move them. I want to develop them. I want to create something. I think it worked somehow. Talk to my people. Maybe they say no, he's a transactional emperor and he's killing the people. Yeah? I hope not. So I think this is somehow, it drives you already very early. You don't have to think about it when you are 28 or 35. So we were 19. What do I want to say to you with that? The question is, what do you want? The question is not only what is your target, but the question should be also what are your values? Because in a leadership ecosystem, also what's flowing is values. Maybe not so visible, you cannot take it like a leaf on the tree, but it is somehow there. What are your values? So if you're asking yourself now, in studying, even when you are in business, what are your values? That should be a quite interesting question because it's critical, positively critical. If you're coming to the point that you say, I want to be a leader, then just take this and say, I'm unique. And that's another thing what I really tell you. Tell yourself, I'm unique. If you have children, tell them every day, you are unique. So maybe you also, sometimes you have to say, please clean your room. But the next moment you say, you are unique. Yeah. I think also connected to values is the word ideals. And if you have ideals, I hope so, then we observe, also in our business, we observe something which is happening to the people. So it's growing. I want to be this, I want to lead, I don't know, whatever you want. Not necessarily in a certain studying, so everyone can have ideas, of course. But what happens if you are leaving university and then you're starting at, don't know, you have to wake up at 6 because the train is going or whatever, and the day is long, and then you are starting maybe to say, well, this is work. It's quite hard. And then you are suddenly maybe questioning your ideas. Do I really want to change the world? And then after a few years, maybe you want to have a family, or maybe your wife wants, or maybe she wants to be married, so that's maybe how it starts. And then you are having children, and then you're having to pay a mortgage, and then you have to, actually you have also colleagues who want to achieve something. It's not only you, it's also others. So you're competing. So it's quite pressure for your ideals. So your ideals are maybe going down, and that's why for me Avatar is a quite interesting film. Somehow in Jake Sully the ideals are growing, and they are coming to a point where he has to decide, do I want to have my legs back because he cannot walk anymore? Or do you want to be at risk? It's not given that it will be successful. Do you want to be successful in another ecosystem? The ideals is the question what you have to ask yourself. So if you are now talking about yourself and you are talking about your values and your targets, which ecosystem you want to be part of in the future? Is the ecosystem something what is comparable to your values? So that means you can broaden out, you can grow inside it. Or you can make the second decision, say, I don't want to be in an ecosystem which is comparable to me, I want to be in another one, not comparable. So then there can happen two things. Either you change the ecosystem, or it's changing you. That's what we see here. And the third thing, and that's not really uninteresting, so it's really very interesting, maybe you create your own ecosystem. I would guess if you in this room are able and willing and really capable to build their own ecosystem, why not? A real life experience which comes from my business or our projects. You see the red and the green columns, and this means that actually in the last assignment, which I was leading 5 years, I was constantly observing how is the attitude of the people from life sucks, this is the red one, yeah, until life is great, or world is great. We saw that what we did was making sense and that the people somehow raised up in their attitude. And then we started to make the people heroes. And what we did is we created a bit somehow something like a story, and we put them onto the platform. We showed them, hey, you are important, you are unique, and you matter to us. We trust you, and we want you. So you see here some adaptations, even Lord of the Rings. He was even almost looking like Gandalf. Honestly, this was really a great story, which also pushed me far away from where I came from. And I have to say that when they came to me 5 years, when I somehow finished this as a CEO and I gave it to my follower, people came to me and made me a superhero, and created a film story to me as a person. And just saying that, it was one of the most important moments in my life because many things came together. It was showing that we were creating an ecosystem which was not comparable to the past one. Actually, we were making mergers and acquisitions, so actually we bought few ecosystems, brought them together, create a new one, and it was really new. It was not that the biggest survived. From many acquisitions, we had a new one, and that was finally the output. Last sentence about ideals, only to just as a takeaway for you. When I was 25 or 26, a man in that company, quite a big company I was working for, a higher level, not my boss, but a higher level guy told me, well, if you're really as you are now, 3, 4, 5 years, and you can be manager of a department. And I said, wow, I was almost crying because I was so happy that I can be sometimes a manager of a department. And then I realized my ideals and my values, and I said, a few days later, I said, well, what a bullshit, after 4 or 5 years to be a manager of a department. I'm here now, so what should I do the next 4 or 5 years? So it worked, so I was getting a CEO position in that company after 2 years, but depends on everyone. So if you see your ideals, ask yourself the question, what are my values? And then you can derive that from that. So, like a summary, if you just want to name it like that, a leadership system is an ecosystem. Please take it into your mind and think about that. It's not only you. A leadership ecosystem is also consisting of the followers. Leadership ecosystem means it's moving, it's not sleeping. A good leader can be a bad leader, or a wrong leader can be a right leader if it was somehow not connectable to the setup in which the ecosystem is. And last not least, ask yourself the question, what are my values, where do I want to go, and in which ecosystem I want to be. And if you are coming up to the final answer, I want to be a leader, only think about one thing. If you want to be a real leader, then you are creating other leaders. And that's my closing, so thank you for listening and have a good day.